better place to start with these Eccles shorts with the boss. So I'm going to start right back at the beginning. So what's your first sort of memory of playing rugby? Did you pick a ball up at school? Were you running up and down the street? Were you playing football and somebody said, yeah, mate, you're probably not the right shape for this. Why don't you try a bigger boy sport? How did you get here?
It's a bit of a strange story. I was about 7. My brother was about 10. And he actually represented Westwood Park Primary School in a game of rugby league. And from that moment, I always said I was going to be a rugby player. And I hadn't even touched the ball yet. And then by the time I got to year 6 in primary school, the school team had disappeared and we didn't have it. So I had to wait another year to then pick a ball up when I went to high school, which was Wentworth High School at the time.
Right, so Wentworth High School, year 7, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, keen as mustard. Was it your PE teacher saying, Simpson, come on, we're playing rugby today? Or was it, sir, can I play rugby? I've been waiting for ages. My brother's playing and I'm not.
It was me knocking on Mr. Warren's door at the time saying, when's the trials for the rugby team, sir?
Right, I like it. So first training session, brand new. Was it, I want to get in the rough and tumble? Or is it, I'm going to stand on the edge, suss this out, and then I'll see if I want to get in the middle?
No, I like the ball in my hand. I like to run with it.
Okay, brilliant. So immediately into the front row as we know you, or worked our way there in later life? Got secret history?
That was me, straight in there, learning my dark arts.
Straight in there with the big boys.
Yeah.
We're loving it. We're knocking lumps out of people. How have you ended up at Gorton Street, knocking on the door?
My dad said to me, Sam, you want to join a rugby club, you're doing really well at school, you love it, we should look at taking you somewhere. He said, I can either take you to play the same game you play at school, or I can take you to a much more physical, hard man's game. And me and James Cunningham at the time were in my garden and we looked at each other and we both looked back at me dad and went, we want to play the hard game. And the following Sunday, we were down at Eccles RFC kicking the ball over the post on the training pitch.
Who's standing there with the cones and the balls waiting for you?
Well, like I said, there was no one. My dad just took me and James, and we were kicking the ball over the post. And then a little bit later on, people started to arrive. It wasn't the sort of setup we had now, and it was Dave Nick. Dave Nick come over to me dad and said, "Oh, hiya lads, we all having fun?" And he said, "What's your names?" Started to talk. He introduced himself to me dad and said, "Why don't you bring the lads down next Sunday for training session?" So we'll be here at this time, and we went from there.
So basically, your entire career has been built on Dave Nick's ability to spot talent at a young age.
Pretty much that and Ray Cook keep employing me dad as a butcher's boy and taking me down on the odd weekends.
So as James Cunningham met him at high school, both knocking on the door together, or is that a relationship you brought from previous and then brought him down and started that journey of playing rugby together?
Me and James were just neighbours. He lived in the house that my uncle Dennis had built on Worsley Road. So admiring the house for a few years when my uncle Den had left, and then James was there, bumped into each other on the park and become pretty good friends all the way through life after that, really.
To this day, thick as thieves.
You've obviously then arrived at Eccles. What age team were you first playing in or belonging to at that point?
It would have been the under 12s. And there was a group of around 8 players at the time. So when me and James got there together, they'd have had a group of 10. And it was the likes of Adam Wilkinson, Will King, Andrew Farnsworth, John Noon, Johnny Holland, Jeffrey Nichols, or Nick Lowe, Mike Kilroy, those sort of players. I think there's about 3 of the lads that were there when I first went, that then went on to be senior rugby players underneath me.
So who was your first coach or your first coaches in that period, Sam, can you recall?
As with most junior teams, it was a group of massively keen, enthusiastic dads. So I think from then on, we were kind of known, and I think we still are when we all come together, as Russell King's Barmy Army. So that was Will King's dad. He was an extremely energetic man who kind of glued us all together at the time. Then there was Ian Farnsworth, who in his own right was an extremely good rugby player, played schoolboy, English schoolboy stuff. He took more of a managerial role. And then there was Johnny Holland's dad, Mark Holland, who I still put in the highest regard of making me probably the man I am today in regarding not being scared of the dark bits of the game.
What memories do you have of that period, before Colts and maybe before the senior experience? What were your highlights of your junior career?
I mentioned there was only 10 of us in that team when me and James first went. And then I kind of feel there was another character that came along who was very similar to me. And we'd made a bit of a reputation for ourselves in the rugby league for school. And very quickly, a lot of the lads from Salford at our age bracket who played against us and with us wanted to come and play with us at Eccles. So to see that team grow the way it did and the camaraderie we had for quite a long time, and even up till 2 years ago when we did a charity match at the club, and I think we beat a team 100-0. We hadn't played together for 15 years, and we put that sort of performance out. It was pretty good, but yeah, we went through some really good stuff together. The club, the tours we had, Centre Parks, some really good memories. We did a curtain raiser against an England and New Zealand game at Old Trafford. We've all still got great memories of that. They took us to see a Manchester Storm's ice hockey game one Christmas. I remember the double-decker buses being all over, the old double-decker buses being all over the car parks, Eccles, picking us up one icy night, taking us into Manchester and then bringing us back. Loads of really good social things that made us want to carry on playing rugby together, and some of us taking those journeys on further.
So your Colts experience then at Eccles, Sam, how did you find that? Was it successful? Was it enjoyable? And how did that perhaps lead to your senior debut?
I played for my counter at age grade, and then obviously it's no secret. I had Leon very young, so as a 16-year-old, Leon was born on my birthday. So that kind of changed the shape of my life a little bit, and some of the things that I found important at that time, and some things that I didn't. I still found rugby massively important, but earning a little bit of money, making sure there was always bread on the table, and trying to balance playing rugby, it dipped off a little bit. And I remember a game vividly at Old Winians as a Colt, and it wasn't a very good game. The lads didn't really want to be there that day, and me being the winning personality I always have been, I wanted to be there because I'd give up a lot to be there that day. So it got to half time and we were under the pump quite a lot. And I took the decision that I was going to go and take my shirt off, walk out and go to work instead. And that stung me for a couple of months, and it stung the lads for a couple of months. So we a couple of us didn't speak for a while because they felt let down by me, and rightly so.
That then led to a departure, did it, Sam? At that point, was that a decision point for you?
Yeah, it did. I went and joined Salford Reds Academy and was playing there for a little bit, going to the places in Yorkshire, Halifax, Leeds, playing against men with a group of boys from Salford. But again, enjoyable times. Me and James close friends from being youth players at the at Eccles. We were very good rugby league players at the same time, and we had a group of lads that we really enjoyed spending time with over Salford as well.
So do you think playing rugby league built into your later years playing rugby union? Because obviously a lot of players do make that transition, but not a lot of players possibly played in the front row in the Type 5 make a successful transition, especially in the front row, being a specialist, going into a very cardiovascular sport, which rugby league is, getting up and down and moving forwards and backwards. It probably doesn't suit your traditional front three player.
I think there's two things there, James. I think me personally, I was probably the beginning of your modern day prop forward. I was the beginning of an athlete playing in the front row that could run as fast as the back rows and some of the backs. I had a set of hands. And then on top of having all that energy and enthusiasm to do extras, I could also do my job of pushing a scrum in the right direction. So going and playing rugby league, to me, it it didn't mean anything different really, apart from running around corners as fast as I could carry the ball. I was moving forward and backwards as fast as I could up and down the field. And that's all it is. You stay in channels a lot more in rugby league. And if you look at the modern game of union now, especially at international level, that's what they tend to do. You don't see a lot of big lads running around corners anymore. They play channels. They understand that if they stay there, the ball's going to come back to them in the next 3-4 phases.
Oh yeah.
Just hold the space.
Was there a point where you were saying, I'm playing this high standard of rugby league, I can apply this higher standard that I'm playing now to a rugby union setting? And obviously with the attraction of money being around those higher leagues, was it I'm good enough to go and play at that level, or I'm going to push myself to play at that level?
Because of my situation as a teenage father, playing for Salford was quite convenient for me because it was all at Cleveland's running track for training at the time. And other than that, I was only on a bus down to East. And being a winter lad, it wasn't too far. But alternatively, my rugby union journey, I was having to travel quite a lot and coming away from my parents a bit. That was a bit difficult. But then the rugby union coaches rang me because I'd missed my England trials at 16. And so they were keeping tabs on what I was doing. And they rang me and said, listen, we know life's been a bit thing for you, but you know, we want to get you back in the county teams. We see a big future for you in rugby union, and this is what we want you to do. So they started to try and get me to join clubs like Fylde and Sedgley straight away at 18. The Preston was mentioned a couple of times as well. But I decided on the conversation, I said, I want to play county rugby again. I want to do that, but I know that I can go back to Eccles and play first team rugby straight away and grow my teeth as a young prop forward. Whereas if you'd have sent me to one of those clubs you were talking about straight away, I'd have been in the third team. I'd have probably ended up playing Colts for them, and they've overlooked me at 18 straight away. They would have. So I made the decision to rock up at pre-season at Eccles with no ambition of playing Colts rugby at all. Really, I was there to play senior rugby, but that kind of changed as well at the time.
Do you think that's an error that lots of maybe 17, 18-year-olds are making at the moment, of maybe taking that step too early, not understanding that there's benefits in playing at your local club, particularly male and female? Obviously, the female league's setting up and lots of players are going to play in that higher league.
If you're good enough, you're good enough. But I honestly believe some of the experiences I had as an 18, 19-year-old playing senior Colts, because I did play for them at Eccles, but mainly senior rugby, I genuinely believe that added to my armoury as a rugby player, and not having everything spoon-fed to you and having to problem solve in those early years and look around where players weren't as committed as me and you're doing extra graft because you want to win more than a couple of your teammates. I think that made me a better player when I did push up, definitely.
Okay, so at what point do you think you said, now's the time for me to make that step? So you've come as an 18-year-old, like you said, you've cut your teeth a bit at this lower level. When's the point you're saying, yeah, I'm going to make that step? Is that a conversation with a coach? Is it a phone call from a coach from a team that you might move on to? Is it a personal decision where I'm going, you know what, yeah, it's go time, I'm ready? So
I took the option of having a sabbatical for about 6 months, and in that time getting in the gym and really lifting some tin. So I was ready. I'd put a lot of good size on before it come to pre-season of me rocking up at Fylde.
Now we're into sort of that pinnacle of your career, if we can call it that top level. Have you got any memories that immediately rush back to you about playing at that level? Any grounds that you visited, players you played against, tracks that you love running around on? Those sort of golden memories of that high up in that level.
I wish I'd have taken a little bit more in than what I did at the time.
Can you remember any of it, Sam?
It was
driving to Blackpool.
It was a very. I took it as a very professional thing to be doing, and it was a job. So it wasn't banter. It was 7 days a week, you were grafting. You worked hard in the gym. You drove up there. You grafted in training, and you were lucky if you got picked on the Saturday. And then when you put that shirt on, you looked your coaches in the eye before you went out, and you played for them. And I was extremely lucky at those first couple of seasons at Fylde to have two extremely passionate coaches and a best mate in Dylan O'Grady, who was driving me up there, an ex-Irish international, who you looked in their eyes and you wanted to go to war for them. And that again built me as the man that I was going forward.
So what years were these, Sam? And what were your opponents during this period? Can you recall?
It would have been the old National 3, which is National 2 now. We had the huge derby against Preston, which was an amazing game to be in, especially the one around Christmas, whether it was Fylde or Preston. Huge spectators watching. But Darlington, Moran Park, Darlington were there for a season, disappeared. So you were going up Newcastle way, Tyndale. We're playing Tyndale. All the big sort of clubs that you can think of north wise, that's who we were playing. I missed Sedgley at the time. They'd gone up the year before I went to Fylde, so I never really got to play for Fylde against Sedgley in a league game, but we played in a precinct friendly when they were in the championship the year before I ended up going to Sedgley, I think it was.
Was there a particular opponent you really enjoyed visiting?
I'll be honest, Chris, I'm not a big fan of going to other places. I like going there and beating them in their own backyard, but I'm always a big believer of there's nothing like being at home. And my heart, I've got two rugby homes. Eccles is my home, and Fylde is my home. And I think Sedgley would have been similar had they have had the crowds that I'd played at and played for Eccles and Fylde. Sedgley, unfortunately, just don't get a big following. So it was kind of, especially coming from Fylde, it was a disappointment coming playing championship rugby at Sedgley and no spectators being there really. You're running out and there's a lot of their fans and not a lot of yours. So that was a bit of a bummer. But I think a big memory that I was very proud of myself at Fylde was we played at Rugby Lions. And as we were talking about being probably one of the first modern day props, I got man of the match, and my coach, Stu O'Connell, head coach, wrote a great report up in the Rugby Times for me. And he said the standout player on Saturday was that, without no doubt, was Sam Simpson. Said a couple of things, and then he mentioned me going past their fullback with a devastating sidestep to score under the sticks.
Did you leave that at Fylde? That devastating sidestep. Retire it.
But that's kind of always been my game. When I'm carrying the ball, I don't see why we're trying to make contact all the time. In defence, you've got to be a very big physical presence, and you've got to make contact. When you're carrying the ball, if you can run hard and step into a space and get that weight through a gap or a half tackle, you're always going to be in a positive position to either break that tackle or offload the ball. And that's been a huge thing for me. And again, going back into my junior career of being at Eccles and first starting training on Wednesday night, where Dave Nick had all the junior sides just playing a game of touch with a few senior players. And you're talking from 12-year-olds to 17-year-olds all playing in the same game with Dave Nick and a couple of the dads. And watching Dave Nick, the way he played the game, the way he moved around the contact area. As a young lad, even a prop, I looked at that and I wanted to do that. That's how I wanted to carry the ball. I didn't want to run at people as hard as I could and try and knock them over. Dave taught me a way of rugby that I thought was very poetic.
Do you feel like in those early years where you decided, I'm going to have a punter coaching, do you feel like you were massively impacted by those coaches, or did you have that clear directive? I know you're talking about Dave Nick's approach to that free-flowing game, which I know you are a massive advocate of now, and that passion for playing the game, which I know I've sat in many changing rooms with you where your eyes are bulging out of your head because you want to win. I've seen that side of you and that multifaceted approach. How do you think that happened? Do you think that's your personality, or do you think you're a product of the people who you've been around?
I don't believe you can get everything from people that you are around. You know, there has to be something inside you that's driving you first, and I have to take responsibility for who I am and what I am. But the paths that I took and some of the people that I met on the way, and then again, you know, James, you know, you come off after the game sometimes, and some of the fossils and that I wanted to speak to you, and a lot of the young lads don't want to know. Whereas I'm a big believer. I've always had those 15-minute, 20-minute, 45-minute conversation with people, because I might have to listen to 55 minutes worth of nonsense, but if 5 minutes of that hour, I could take 2 golden nuggets that will make me a better human being.
A lot would still say that you've still got yards in you and you've still got plenty to give. So we've played together maybe 10 years, I think, coming up to that, in different capacities, with you as my coach, with you as a player coach at the same time, and always being in that first team environment. Are the boots on the hook, or are they still on the edge of the door in case you get inspired?
I genuinely believe that if there was a National League game tomorrow and someone needed me to play, I could go and play 50, 60 minutes that game and be Sam Simpson. If I had an 8-week training program, I could play a season of knocking 3 games out back to back and then having a rest week while some young kid plays. I could do that. But I took the thing many years ago that I wanted to go into coaching, and that's what I did. And then I think people forget, when I retired, I didn't go straight into a player coach capacity. I was a coach. I didn't have my boots on. I stood on the side of the field and I coached Eccles teams. And then it was only when we had a bit of a crisis with players and things weren't going the way they should have done, I put my boots on.
What's your memories of that first year back coaching?
I remember there was lots of frustrations. You know, I've always been quite a physical bloke, and that needs channeling. So on after my first year of coaching, don't forget, I was still playing a lot of rugby while coaching. So I was head coach at Eccles at 21, yeah, and I was playing at Fylde. So I'd coach Tuesday, Thursday, and then I'd leave the team with Paul Thorpe and Gary Greaves on a Saturday, and then straight after the game, if I could, I'd get straight back to the club, and we'd have a conversation about how the game went. We'd have some video analysis that I'd look through the week, the weekend, Sunday and Monday, and then we'd be back to training on Tuesday. And for that first season went extremely well, and obviously we won promotion and we won a cup, which was tremendous. And then a couple of years after, just being stood there and things aren't going as well as you want them to. Not great standing there watching when you know you can do better yourself at times.
So what were your objectives? What were your principles, your ethos at that period, Sam, casting your mind back to those first years as a coach?
My first years were very simple. When I come back to Eccles, it was my club. I knew the people. I knew where they were going wrong, I believed. And I had to, A, teach the people at Eccles how to put a winning team together. And then I had to, B, get everyone to buy into what I was saying. And both of them happened pretty easily, if I'm honest. And the ethos, and if you like, my game plan at the time was very basic and very simple. I built a ferocious set piece at Eccles, and my game plan was territory and pressure. We've got the ball in our half, we kick it into their half, get it into touch. I built an amazing line out built around Pete Liller and Cy Donovan. Yeah, we turn them over on their own 5 metre and we drive them over. Or they'd knock the ball on through an error that we'd forced. Yeah, we'd have a scrum, we'd drive them over. It was, the line out was built around Cy and Pete, like I said. And then, you know, the scrum at Eccles for years wasn't very good because they just hadn't had that sort of coaching. And you know, Sean Griff was playing second row. Sean Griff is what you'd say a championship, premiership tight head forward shape, and he was playing second row. It was that era still. So Sean was about to retire from playing rugby in my first year, and I grabbed hold of him and said, "Listen," I said, "I need a cornerstone, and you are my cornerstone. I'm going to teach you how to dominate the scrum for me, and you're going to play for another 10 years." Well, that's what he did. That's what he did. And if he hadn't been getting a few injuries later on, he'd still be playing now at a good level.
Never live that down now you've said that.
So how do you think Sam, Sam, the coach today, differs from Sam, the coach then?
I think identifying that rugby's changed. The people within rugby's changed. So not everybody you can look at them in the eye and tell them what you need them to do or what you want them to do or what they've done wrong at that time in an aggressive, abrupt way. Whereas that gets the best out of me. And a lot of those lads in the first years, that got the best out of them. But in the world we live in now, when players have got so much more other things that they can do, and especially at a club like Eccles, when these people are giving their time for nothing, they're not being paid. They're playing rugby for free. They're giving their spare time up when they could be with family, earning extra money. You know, so you've got to manage players very well. Yes, there's still those players like myself that you can look at, shout at, and that'll drive them. But there's also those players that need an arm around them. And if you don't identify that very quickly, then you lose players and you start to lose games.
Obviously, people watching this and people who've played in teams that you've coached over the years will be able to pick out players where you think that team was built around those key players. Those players sort of drove that mentality that you instilled into them. So I just wanted to pick your brains about those sort of players. Did you immediately recognize those players? Did you start to foster players? I think, like, obviously you mentioned Cy Donovan and Pete, and then when you sort of moved through, you talked about Griff, and then sort of later when I came into the group, thinking about players like Joe Dale, who I think we wouldn't go too far to say that was built very much in your image. You built him into a first team player. So is it a point of recognizing I need those are the players I need in a Sam Simpson team, or is it going, you know what, I've got him, I can mold him into this. That's where my team's going to go.
If you're a head coach, director of rugby at your rugby club, and you're looking at being there for a long time, and it's not a short period of time so you can move on to the next chapter in your life, I think you put the work in, James. And for years, I was at that rugby club 5 days a week, 5-6 days a week. And the hours that I was putting into kids training, to watching kids games on Sundays, back-to-back games, traveling with them to watch their development, have little conversations with them in the gym with players that were coming through the club that needed that extra little bit of help, just physically, because they were going to be a first teamer once they finished their Colts journey, but they needed that bit of support to develop themselves. And I knew that this was my club and these were my people. And if I weren't going to do this for them, then who was? I knew that I needed success straight away in those early days for them players. So I implemented a game and a structure that I knew they would be successful with. And then the more years that went by and the more players that I nurtured through the club, along with all the other volunteer coaches that did the age grade stuff, you know, your game plan can start to change because you've got a higher quality of player in certain positions. So we spoke before about I love to run with the ball. I love to carry. I love to play offloads. I don't want to scrummage and line out all day. But so as soon as those players started to come through, and you can see they've got those things, they've got the mentality, they've got the ability, there's someone you can work with, they've got ambition, then you can start to develop your game plan as a coach and start to also empower them players to take responsibility of their own things within that game. You know, I've got a lot of knowledge, a lot of rugby knowledge, but I'm not the fountain of knowledge. And some of these kids that are coming through now, have got good experience in teams. They've played rugby from being 8 years old. They know how to play a game of rugby. So you've got to try and absorb information from them by asking these questions and allowing them to go and express themselves in training, and then hopefully bring that to a game when it's ready.
So Sam, for those that are watching, can you summarise your proposed direction, for rugby at Eccles? So, what is your vision, and what do you think the things are that are crucial to achieving your vision for the club?
My vision's always been the same, and we're nearly there. Eccles is a National League rugby club, self-sufficient. If you look at the quality of player that has come through Eccles and continues to come through Eccles on a seasonally basis through its own cult structure, we can be a force at National League level. We were seven spaces away from National League rugby. And I still believe to this day the club is capable of that. Yes, we have stepped backwards slightly because we lost quite a chunk of players, but we will really rebuild and we'll get there. That's what the club's capable of. I think our kids are the way forward. If we get them developed the way we can do and give them the time and the nurturement that they need, they are players that can take the club where we want the club to be, and more importantly, where they want the club to be. They don't want to play average rugby. They want to challenge themselves. They want to be challenged. They want to compete. They want to leave a legacy. These kids, why would you give your time up? Otherwise, with all the other things to offer that life's got to offer now, why would you give your time up to play competitive rugby if you didn't want that? Without them players wanting it, it doesn't exist. And I just become a participation rugby coach, not a performance coach, which I'm quite happy to do. I wear that hat as well often.
So if I was to give you one wish and say to you, as the Eccles coach now with the team you've got, if we were going to adapt the game in any capacity, how would you adapt the game or bring in a rule to say that would massively benefit us as a club or massively benefit rugby in general?
I think we're making changes on a yearly basis that betters the game and allows it to be more free flowing. I really do. I'd like to see possibly a change around scrum or referees better educated there at set piece time, so it's a bit faster, especially in the Premiership and international games. The minutes we're wasting on scrums, and I watched the game last week, and eventually the two props got yellow carded and got sent off pretty early in the game. I want to say it was Gloucester and someone.
I watched that game.
Yeah. To see that was belting. Let's give them 3 or 4 chances. If they're not up to it, send them off. You don't know who it is because you're not a specialist. Send them both off. Let's fix it. And then the other 2 are coming on terrified because if they don't just stay on the feet and the ball comes in and out, the game's not going to be played. I want to see a competition at set piece time, but if you're not going to do it legally, or at least just stay on your feet and have a pushing competition, I want you off the field. Because otherwise, what you're 23 stone for? If you can't scrummage, you can't stay on your feet. What are you 23 stone for? Because let's just get you at 16 stone. Let's get you running around the park more, and let's get these people that are paying money to watch rugby enjoying a spectator sport.
I think lowering the average weight of a player from, like you say, 20 odd stone to 15, 16 stone, do you think that improves the game?
I don't want to put a weight bracket on anything, James, because there's some absolute mutants that want to run and play. You look at some of the Samoans, some of the Samoans and Fijians, Tongans, they're huge, but none of them want to play in the type 5. They're all a centre or a standoff, but they have to go and do that because they won't have a team. I want these guys to want to run. They're professional athletes. I want them to want to run and play rugby. And if you are a specialist scrummager and you're 23 stone because you're a specialist scrummager, then don't be falling on your face constantly. Keep the scrum up and push. And if you can't push, just hold your ground. Get the ball in now and let the good-looking lads run with it. Just thinking about your question, that I think is really important right now. And Pat Lamb was mentioning it a while back ago, and I see exactly what he's saying. And me being the person I am, I'd like to see a change here. So as it stands now, if somebody assaults me on a rugby field and then I assault them, I get exactly the same punishment, and my team get exactly the same punishment as that person who did it. And sometimes you get worse for retaliation. Your free kick gets flipped, so you've both been yellow carded. The free kick gets flipped, or the penalty gets flipped, and the team get the penalty. That's wrong. In the world we live in, you can meet force for force with law. If someone assaults you, you've got to protect yourself. So I'd like to see a change there. If it's blatantly obvious that somebody has punched somebody in the face, that player should be allowed to strike them back once. It should be allowed, because why are they allowed to hit you and you're just meant to stand there and do nothing about it? We talk about concussions and all these injuries and all this. I've got my family in the stands. This is what Pat Lamb said. I agree. I've got my family in the stands, my children watching me play rugby, and somebody assaults me. I don't do anything. I'm not allowed to protect myself. And then the next minute I'm in hospital. It's not on. That needs to change. If somebody hits you, you should be allowed to defend yourself.
We're going to sort of come to the end point of this sort of first Eccles short. So we're going to move on to that dream team, that Eccles dream team. So I'm going to watch this with keen interest, with the amount of years you've played, the amount of players that you've come across. And I'm going to be more interested in messaging all the people that don't make it than the people that do make it. So if you can make sure Spooner's not in any of it, that would be a great start. So I'm going to start you off with, you can go through however you want to go through. If you want to go do the type 5, anywhere where you want to pause and give us some reasons for in there. Anybody that's ridiculous, I will obviously call you out. But feel free to fire away with number 1.
This is very awkward for me, because, as someone who has been around the club for a long time and I've seen players and then worked with players and I'm still working with players, there's loads of names that could have gone on a sheet. And when I've done this before and wrote it down, I get like 3 teams, and then I'm putting names across and stuff like that, and it just becomes awkward. And then I don't know the rules. Am I just going for a team that have come through the ranks at Eccles, or am I going through a team that have just played and they're from anywhere? So I always get a bit confused. But on this particular one, I think I'm going to stick to players that I believe have come through the Eccles ranks to show what I believe my vision is for the club and where we should be as a club and where we can be in the future. So all these names have never played anywhere else, to my knowledge, other than Eccles, or they've played somewhere but still come through our junior structure.
So this is going to be a homegrown Eccles dream team.
This is a homegrown Eccles dream team. Okay, so I've got coaching this side. I've got George Glover.
Legend, absolute legend.
And the reason I've done George Glover is because I think he has been instrumental over the years for allowing his players, before any of this player empowerment, he continued to allow players just to play and then give them snippets of advice or ask them questions. Before all this came in, he was doing this stuff. And some of the rugby his last Colts teams played was exceptional, and it was a beautiful thing to watch. So he would be someone that I think could still do a job coaching at Eccles. Definitely. So George Glover gets the head coach role.
Great start.
There's obviously going to be no one else at a loose head prop. My CV speaks for itself.
I'm banging
Simpson.
Yeah. I'm Simpson. How'd you spell that?
Okay. Then this particular young lad is someone who's always gonna be a very fond player to me, because I've coached him, I've coached his younger siblings, and he was everything you want at the side of you when you pack down. And his work rate, when we talk about the modern front rows, he was another one that was cut from that cloth that I believe a few in my generation started. Goes to Connor Formley.
Yes. Yeah. The golden years, time on a battle.
Okay, the next one, I don't believe he ever played senior rugby at the club, but he come all the way through. He got to Sale Jets, a few injuries set him back. He went over playing rugby league, but some of the stuff this lad was capable of, for the size of the man, in his running, his passing, his kicking ability. He was just an athlete. We spoke before, James, about a 23, 24 stone man, but can scrummage and can move. Well, this kid was that. It goes to Adam Taylor.
Yeah.
Second row's pretty easy, to be honest. When I think about what I want an athletic 4, and I want a big physical presence at 5 that's going to help that anchor behind the tight head and dominate the weight on that side. So at 4, I've got Ty Donovan.
No brainer.
At 5, I've got Scott Pearce.
Absolute mutants, and the only mutants that have walked through the door in the past 20 years, I think.
Okay, so this is where it starts to get interesting now, because in my opinion, Eccles has been absolutely blessed with back rowers, whether they've come through the club or they've come after and they've played elsewhere, and a few of them have come as wingers, and then the club's turned them into back rowers. Wayne Williams was someone who I loved to play with. What a physical presence, what an athlete. If he could have only got his life in order while he was in Manchester, he could have been something very special for the club. It was a shame he had to leave the City. And then you've got Darragh, the size of the man, the yards he could make from a pick and go. Just a typical Irish minor. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
Beast.
But unfortunately, they're not going to get in it because they're not bread and butter through the club. So I needed a bit more contact at 6. I needed someone who's going to hit, make people sit down. It's going to give people a bit of a rise in the team when he sees his guy booming people. So he went to Joe Dale at 6.
Yes, there he is. Good call. Keep him away from number 8.
Okay, 7. He's going to go down as a club legend. People have said what he could have done if he'd have changed position. I genuinely believe if the man had just got a decent weight program, committed more to what he was doing away from the rugby pitch, this guy could have played proper rugby. He's thinking of the game, his athleticism. Until we started to get to a higher level where the contact started to take a toll on his naturally gifted body, he'd still be playing now. It's Greg Wilson at 7.
What a player. I think arguably most people would say in the modern generation he's one of the best players that put an Eccles shirt on quite easily. Yeah. Great player.
Okay, 8. This is someone that not a lot of people are going to know a lot about, but if you've been around the club and you know who he is, then you'll understand why he's got in, because I've worked with him for a while. I've enjoyed watching him play when I've not been coaching him, and again, he's another line-out option, but the stuff he can do with the ball in hand, his footwork before contact, his fend, his turn of pace, he's just a fantastic athlete, and he's a fantastic young man as well. And it goes to Connor James.
Big man. Okay.
So then that takes us to 9. I thinking about this for a while. I, being the man I am and wanting to see exciting rugby, I want halfbacks that are going to attack the line. I want them to be a little bit greedy and think about themselves before others, and just keep that back line honest, and also have a little bit of a swag about him. And this guy can play anywhere in the halves. He has done for the first team, done an amazing job. But I picked Scott Morton at 9.
Yeah, bit of a maverick, bit of your type of player.
Yeah,
very good player. Good kicking game as well. Yeah,
again at 10. Probably one of the most exciting standoffs that we've had through the club. There's been a few, but I might be being a bit biased as well. But he's somewhat special when he's on his game. 10 goes to Leon Simpson.
Yeah.
11, strong man, fast man. When he's not on the physio bed, he was a tremendous player. I took him to Fylde with me for a bit. Didn't really make it there. And then when I went to Sedgley, he followed with another friend of his, and he did exceptionally well. He was the leading try scorer until, for some reason, in National 1, until some reason the coach decided to put a centre on the wing and drop him. Exceptional player, and I think that he'd have been playing still today had people not messed him about a bit. It's Mike Dutton at 11. 12, the game's changed a lot now. We look to play two different sorts of halfbacks, and this lad, I played against him. I've never been lucky enough to play alongside him, and I don't think I ever will do now, which is a shame, because he's had his teeth done and decided he wants to be a model now. But 12 has got to be Chris Parrott. Tremendous player, had a great career through Sale and the National Leagues, and again, really good rugby man, good thinker.
Ball carrier as well. Hard man.
Yeah. I've never seen him miss a tackle. But his defensive duties will be great there, but distributing to the threats we've got out wide and supporting Leon there, I think, would be unbelievable. 13, we've started to try and have a bit of an hard man there now, haven't we? Someone who wants to carry hard, who likes that competitive edge, and we've had a few come through the club that are like that. But if we look at his CV as well and what he's done and what he could probably still do if he wanted to be honest, he is what he says on the tin. It's Alex Hurst at 13.
Nice. Again
on 14, bit of a taller man. Don't look like he's running, but the stride of the man is just unreal. He's 4 of our strides. I don't know how he covers the ground. He does, but he does. Represented England for the police. Really good player. Should have, could have, would have played higher level rugby if he wanted to, but he just didn't choose to do it. It's Adam Wilkinson.
He's also got no knees and no hamstrings left, so would probably struggle.
Yeah.
Class player, top class player.
15. Again, I think we have had some fantastic backs come through our club over the last 20 years, and I've had loads of honour to be able to work with some of them, if not the majority of them. And this lad, when I saw him start, I thought he was something special. And he was never afraid of picking the phone up and saying, "Sam, I'm coming home this weekend from uni. I want a game of rugby. Can I play?" And he was influential in the year we went up to level 6 because of his coming back and supporting the team in games. He's Sam Higgins at 15.
Class player. Thought Finchy might have got a shout in the back there. Thought Finchy was going to creep in.
I've been a bit greedy because I picked a bench of 7. This is a Premiership team I'm picking here.
Sounds like you're creeping to a lot of people.
Okay. Yeah. No. This is yeah. Okay, so
16 now.
So the 16. There's only one man who could really support Conor Thornley, and he did bring the best out of him for a good few years at the Colts and when they stepped up to senior rugby, and he then away when I left that year and went to Sedgley, and he's played some good games at Sedgley, and they would have kept him. He chose to leave at Rosendale to play more first team rugby, but it's Tom Cobb at 16. Yeah.
Two top class hookers at the same time, the same age. Just unfortunate.
I don't believe for another loose head who could play loose and tight head, and for the size of him and his running ability and his work rate, and also his enjoyment to make big hits. You wouldn't have thought he'd have had that, but my supporting acts on the bench for myself would have been Ross Stewart.
Yeah, played a bit of hooker as well.
Yeah,
1, 2, and 3. Very, very rare.
Yeah. This next one's a big throwback. I don't think if there was Colts when he was there, he would have played. And if he didn't play Colts, he never played for anyone else, and he was at Eccles anyway. I mentioned him before. I genuinely think, and he said it to me on several occasions, if I had a coach's guy earlier, he would have got to a much higher standard of rugby because he had the ability in his size, and not many people learn how to play tight head as well as he did in such a short period of time, and the dark arts of that, and that's Sean Griff.
The grifter. Played at Fleetwood with a broken foot. Won't let anybody forget it.
So then that takes us to our back row, second row cover. Because we've got Connor James in the number 8 position, who could easily slide in as a second row and plays there a lot at Sedgley in the National Leagues. I've gone for 2 back rows. So again, to try and keep that energy coming off the bench and people wanting to run and play rugby. So I've gone Adam Christie and Glenn Cahill. And then my 2 back substitutions is Jordan Davis, who had a tremendous career at Sale, Salford, went abroad for a bit. I don't think he's playing now, which is a shame. He only lives around the corner. His father still sponsors the club quite a lot. Yeah. It'd be lovely to see him at the club a bit more in a playing, coaching capacity. He'd always be welcome. And then the next outside back, who I believe I don't know how we've coped without him really, and he didn't play for years, and some of the stuff he did last season for Blackpool was ridiculous really. I think he was a one-man team at points, but that's Chris Finch.
Great player. What a player.
So that's my homegrown Eccles dream team that if anyone wants to pull them together and compete against any National League team, I'll take the challenge.
I like it. You got a captain in there?
Yeah, Cy Donovan's my captain.
Cy Donovan captain.
Yeah.
I like it. Good team that, mate. Good team.
Sean Griffith's my social sec.
Sean Griffith's social sec.
Yeah.
Joe Dale on jokes.
Thank you, Sam. It's been a great pleasure to listen to you and chat for the last hour or so, and we'll look forward to putting it out soon.
Just before we finish, the question got asked earlier, when I think, have I not decided to have my boots up? People will never need to ask me this question, because when you see me with a full set of Nashers in the club, that's when you know I'm never going to play again. So until you see the full set of Nashers in the club, then there's always the possibility he's going to put his boots on and play.
Can't fly to Turkey at the moment, so you've got a couple of years in you yet.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Cheers for that. Thank you very much. Speak to you soon.